Welcome to PeopleTools Tech Tips. I'm Randy Groncki, and today we're formatting DateTime fields inside of Excel BI Publisher templates. Hi, on a previous episode, we talked about formatting date fields inside of BI Publisher Excel templates. Well, if I had some friends come back and talk to me and say, hey, we have actually templates that we need the date time, not just a date. And your formula doesn't work for that. It just brings in the date, and then we get errors or just shows the date itself without the time. So how do you do a date time inside of an Excel template with BI Publisher? Well, it's easy, but it's a little bit more work. Here's the secret. Again, bring in that date timestamp from the XML file into a text-defined column, so it's just text. And then in your other fields, break up that date time into the date field and then the time field. Our problem with Excel is Excel does not have a formula that converts a string into specifically a date time value. We have date conversions and time conversions. So all we have to do is break up that date time text field with just string functions inside of Excel, and then do our Excel functions of date value and time value to each one of those, and then combine it back in the end. Okay, let's take a quick look at our XML file. We're talking about last update date time, not just date. We have this quick file. We just pulled it off the PS query defin table, which has the last update date time there. And you can see it in our XML file. We have all these different date timestamps, and that's what we're going to use in our Excel template. Okay, so here's our Excel template. Again, it's an Excel 97 template, not the modern day Excel template. Now we're bringing our fields in. We have our query name, desker, the opera ID, and we're bringing in last update date time as a text. This column is defined as a text column. Just to see that much, we see the date timestamp is kind of really detailed, funky. It has the T and the 0700 at the back of it that we really don't want to use. But we're going to break that apart and make it a date time field that's consumable as a date time inside of Excel. Now back to our template, we want to get just the date out of that date time text. So what we're going to do is this is formatted as a date column, date, and then what we're going to do is equal date value left of this for 10 characters. Now let's see how that looks. And we can see we have our dates. And to get our time field, we want to get the mid 8 out of this string. So we're going to come here and make sure this column is defined as a time field. And we want to pick that one at the top, that hour, minute, and second with the AM, PM. Equal time value, mid string of our thing. And this starts at field 12 and then goes for 8 characters. And there's our time field. Now let's go see how that looks. Or date and time. Now here is the fun part. We want to do this. We're going to format as a date time, format cells, time, and I'm going to do a fancy one like that. Date, time. And all we're going to do is add the date field and the time field. So equals this plus this. There is our date time value right down to the seconds with the AM and PM in a format that Excel can consume. So let's clean it up. We have brought in our date time as a text field. Then we converted just a date part to a date value field in Excel. Then we have the time value in Excel, just those 8 characters. And then we added them the two together to do the date time field. So let's clean this up. Then we're going to come and hide the columns we don't want to see. So here we have what we wanted to get in the first place. Query name, desker, last operator D updated, and our last update date time with the date, hour, minute, seconds, AM, PM in a format you can manipulate in Excel as a date time. So you're saying you can do that, and you're right, you can. And there's another part of you that says, I should have known that. Just remember, our big issues in coding can usually be solved by breaking that big issue into multiple smaller issues. Just remember, if it doesn't work the 42nd time, try again. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing to our channel, and we'll see you next time here on PeopleTools Tech Tips.